Dr. Andrea Hunter is here with us, and we're so honored to have her. She is an enrolled member of the Osage Nation from the Grey Horse District and an active participant in the Inlanchka dances. Both of Dr. Hunter's grandfathers, Joseph Cannon and Arthur A. Hunter, were full-blood Osage. Hunter received a BA in anthropology from the University of Colorado Boulder and an MA and PhD in anthropology from the University of Missouri-Columbia. Dr. Hunter was the first Native American in the United States to receive a PhD in anthropology with an expertise in archaeology. After 17 years as a professor in the Department of Anthropology and director of the North American Division of the Laboratory of Paleoethnobotany at Northern Arizona University Flagstaff, Dr. Hunter was honored to accept the position of Director and Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Osage Nation in 2007. Dr. Hunter also served as the Vice Chair for 10 years and Chair for 10 years of the Smithsonian Institution's Native American Repatriation Review Committee, and during the same period was appointed a Research Associate at the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Hunter. It's really great to have you in these conversations always.
Thank you for inviting me to participate. I know I was really excited to start working with you all with the Research Center and work here on the reservation. I know we have extended the folks that are working with the university to try to get some of these programs going. And it's really exciting for us working out at Bird Creek Farm here on the reservation and getting some of our natural resources folks involved in this, and also in our education people. And that department, I know, has been working hard to get our youth involved, and hopefully that, as Sarah was mentioning, hopefully that will come to fruition as long as the pandemic will leave us alone. I think we can start getting some more positive work done. But this morning, I want to take the opportunity to talk about the cultural heritage of our tribe and the Ozarks. And the Ozarks, you know, the Osage people have had a really long history in the state of Missouri and in the Ozark region specifically. The Ozark Mountains, as you can see, and most of you are aware, it's a vast area that encompasses really 4 states, and Missouri has the largest area, over half of the southern part of the state is in the Ozark region. And this area, the Osages, you know, utilizing the oral traditions that we have, utilizing archaeological evidence and linguistic evidence, we have put together our record of our own history. And we know that around AD 500 is when we migrated from the Ohio River Valley into what would become the state of Missouri, living along the tributaries, also over in the state of Illinois. But we started this migration around 400 AD, and 500 AD, we start seeing evidence of this movement into the tributaries of the Mississippi River, the Missouri River, and this takes us, starts us going into the Ozarks. But in our history, we have a time period around 900 AD when we see our culture really come together, our ancestral Osages and our other Daguian speaking relatives, the Omaha, the Ponca, and the Kaw. We see this development of what is known as the Mississippian culture. That's what the archaeologists have termed this period. We see the development of a huge habitation area around the St. Louis area, and some of you may be familiar with Cahokia. And we lived there for several hundred years, and you can see the manifestation of this with all of the mounds that were built, all of the barricades that were built around the ceremonial centers, and then the huge areas of habitation and the agricultural farms that were throughout this area. And it was quite a phenomenon of folks coming together. And there were other cultures also that came and moved into this area, and it flourished for several hundred years. And the Osage played a huge role in this culture. And of the Digin speaking Siouan groups, we were the ones that were there the longest. And when we started moving out from this area, we can see our footprint throughout the Ozarks in various cultural manifestations, including our burials, our sacred sites. You can see our trail systems, went throughout this region, and we've got camps and villages throughout the area. And starting around 1350, we see a movement away from that huge Mississippian population that had started to dwindle through various reasons of climate change and some warfare, disease, and overuse of some of the resources there. The ancestral Osage leave this area and essentially move out into their backyard in the Ozarks. And we see this movement around 1350. And there are lots of villages that we see start to expand along the tributaries of the Missouri River, the Osage River. And we're there until around 1825. We're utilizing the Ozarks. We have several large villages that developed through that time period, but with the arrival of the Europeans and the various government regimes, it ended up in a huge loss for the Osage. We had the majority of the state of Missouri, as well as Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and all of this area was lost to the United States government through the treaty system. But for the Ozarks, when we were living in this area, this was a great resource, and we utilized this with the oak hickory forests that are so vast in this region, and the hardwoods that are in the bottomlands. It was just an amazingly rich environment, and we utilized all of these resources that were available. And just to give you an example of the various types of resources that we use, if we look at what we did under our subsistence economy, a great portion of that was hunting, that the men engaged, primarily the men engaged in getting protein. And it was through a series of 3 annual large hunts that the tribe would go out, where the men would hunt starting in, as you can see, the February and March area would begin that season with going out into the Ozarks to hunt bear and beaver and deer. And then they would return to their camps, and then in the summer, after, well, the late spring, after they planted the fields, then they would go again out into the plains, and there they, of course, would go for the bison and deer, return, harvest their plants, and then in the fall, they would once again go out into the Ozarks for bison, or in the plains for the bison, and then over into the Ozarks for the deer. And this would last, through the fall, starting in the winter, where they would go into their camps. But we also have agriculture that played a major role in the subsistence strategy as well. And when the Osage first moved into Missouri, the Mesoamerican cultigens were just starting to be used in a serious manner. And that is the corns and beans we know coming up from Mesoamerica, but the ancestral Osage also had cultivated native plants that are right here in the Midwest. And for a long time, they thought that, these three, corn, beans, and squash, are often referred to as the three sisters. And, for many years, we thought that squash was in that Mesoamerican group that came up. But through the work of paleoethnobotanists, we soon found out that there was a native squash species that was domesticated right here in the Midwest, and it is actually part of that, what's known as the Eastern complex, agricultural complex. And this was actually our ancestral Osage that were a part of this. Most of you are probably familiar, there are only really identified, I think, around 10 major domestication centers worldwide. And the this Eastern complex in the Ohio River Valley and over here in the Midwest is one of those 10. And this was our ancestors that were doing this early domestication. And squash was one of the first ones that was brought into domestication. So we see the cultivation and ultimate domestication of several native small seeded plants that we used. We started using these back in the Ohio River Valley, and excuse me, we continued this use as we came over into Missouri, into the Ozarks. And so you see the domesticated goosefoot, sunflower, marsh elder, all of these were brought under domestication, as well as maygrass and knotweed, excuse me, and little barley. I've got major sinus problems going on. I'm sorry about this. But these are a suite of plants that really demonstrate the level of, the subsistence economy that was being engaged with at an early time period. And oh my gosh, somebody has our phones here. Oh my gosh, sorry about this. And actually, little barley, Hordeum pusillum, is the plant that I investigated when I was at the University of Missouri, and that was my dissertation, was showing that little barley went through that process of domestication, and it was right at it had gotten to that point, but right when it did, the corn and beans and our population started growing immensely, and the corn won out. And so as, you know, our population was increasing, gosh, I'm sorry, my administrative assistant is not here this morning. And let me see if I can knock this off here. Okay. All right. I apologize. It's crazy over here this morning. So anyway, we do have, you know, this suite of plants that we brought over, and we also relied on the fruits. There were so many that were over here that in the Ozarks that were absolutely delicious that we still use today. Persimmons, pawpaws, the wild grapes, plums. We have a very special dessert that we have still today that is quite prized, and it's grape dumplings. And if y'all are ever over here, boy, that's sure something you need to try. As with the forest being so rich, we utilized, of course, all these nuts that were available, and this was provided a good portion of the subsistence strategy that was used when we were in these forested areas. Roots also were used, the groundnut, the wild onions, and of course the yonkapin. They're again still plants that we use today. We have our ceremonial dances in the month of June. They're getting ready to start soon, and all of these traditional foods that we were using when we were back in the Ozarks, we're still using today, and they're really delicious. Enjoy them. But as with the plants and animals, you know, they provided us a lot of food sources, but then we also utilized the plants and animals in, you know, our utilitarian building, our houses, to the tools we used, the furs, the hides, all of this, you know, we used at all aspects of the resources that were there. And, you know, the natural landforms and the waterways of the Ozarks, we knew very well. And with so many hundreds of years of occupation, Osage spiritual places also are, you know, incredibly numerous throughout the Ozarks. And these, of course, are the cave locations where these are sacred spaces. There's a lot of rock art that was left by our ancestral Osage. The confluences of the major rivers are very, very special, very spiritual places for us, very powerful. And springs, all of these bluff shelters, you know, they're really special places that we today bring our people back to. Every year, our office, we have what's called the Osage Heritage Site Visits, and we take 20 community members and we pay for everything, and we go out into our ancestral territory, including Missouri and the Ozarks, and we take them to these special places. I mean, this is not something that, you know, is in our past and it's forgotten and we don't know about it. These are living places for us. They're you know, very special, and this is why we were just so thankful that we have this opportunity in the Ozarks with the new research center there, that this is going to provide us another opportunity for us to take our Osage people, our community members back and visit these places and reconnect with these locations that are so special for us, because we, when we were living there in the Ozarks, they we fully understood the importance of taking care of the resources and protecting the resources and not abusing them. And this is something that we carry on today. And we're just real thankful to the University of Missouri for this opportunity. So I know that was kind of a quick rundown with a lot of interruptions, but thank you. That's the presentation I have for you all this morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hunter. Folks are welcome to ask questions in the chat, or if you'd rather just unmute yourself and ask a question, that's just fine too. Our next speaker is not here yet, so we have a little bit of time, and if you need to take a little bit of a break, that's okay too. This is a good time for it. So I'll be watching the chat, and folks are welcome to chime in.
Dr. Hunter, this is Sarah. First of all, thank you so much for providing that presentation. Every time I hear you talk, I learn so many new things, like the little barley story. I guess I didn't know, I didn't realize that. So I definitely want to follow up on that. I have a lot of interesting questions. One question I had is about pawpaw. I read somewhere that the Osage used pawpaw, the bark, for various different purposes. Are you familiar with the uses of the bark itself of pawpaw?
We have been working, as I believe you know, with the University of Kansas and putting together our Osage ethnobotany. And, we are excited about getting that put together and getting it into a manageable format that we can share with people. And going over all of these, at the moment, I can't think of which use the pawpaw bark was used for, but there were just so many aspects of these different resources that it's very interesting to go back and put all these together. And hopefully with the work there at the Research Center and over here at the Bird Creek Farms, that we can put exhibits together to show these different resources and how they were used.
That'd be amazing. That'd be really, really great. Somebody says, Sarah, can you ask her about marsh elder? Talk a little bit more about that plant.
Well, marsh elder, these were a whole series of these plants that we're talking probably around 4,000, 3,000 BP. And so this is back when we were really in the Ohio River Valley area, and hunting and gathering was, a subsistence strategy that was being utilized. And as populations grew and people started settling down into their camps more and realizing that, there were all these very healthy resources, these small seeded plants that could provide substantial amount of food each year. And the mother of invention, going and collecting the seeds and then saving the larger seeds and then replanting those seeds. This was what was done with marsh elder, chenopodium, all of those plants. They just simply started using those in the camps themselves were up and away from the rivers. And so they were using the bottomlands and using the floodplains and using those areas for planting these small seeded plants, and started gathering them on an annual basis. And through that cultivation, they domesticated each one of these. So you see the actual seeds in most instances of all of these. You can see the seed or the achenes, they're actually getting larger. They're selecting for these larger plant parts and taking advantage of them. And marsh elder was one of those.
There's another question here about ancestral squash varieties, if there are any that the Osage still grow.
We have a variety of squash that we're using, and you know, many people ask about, you know, the strains of squash and the strains of corn, and whether these are actually the ones that we had used back in the Ozarks or even further back. And, you know, you have to look at our history. And when we left Missouri in 1825 and moved over into Kansas, and then we were moved further to our reservation in Oklahoma, there was a lot that was happening that was disrupting our traditional ways. But one thing that was consistently held on to was, I mean, that food resource, and always having it, you know, is, I mean, it's a part of, you know, your survival from year to year. And our survival was pretty questionable there when we started getting removed from from our homelands. But these strains, they would have to be what we grow today. The families that have those, it is believed that those are the original types that were used back in the Ozarks, and it would have to be tested to verify that. But knowing our history and knowing how important that was for us, I would guess that they would be.
Other questions? And Hannah, do we have our next speaker?
Yes, we do. Yeah, so we have just a few minutes before the next presenter starts. So if you have any more questions for Dr. Andrea Hunter, now is the time. And we're really looking forward to continuing to work with Dr. Hunter at Land of the Osages Research Center. So if there are no more questions, and feel free to drop those in the chat and we can follow up later if need be. I will start to make the transition, and if you need to take a break, we have a couple minutes to do so now. So thank you so much, Dr. Hunter.